Well, hello there, everyone. Here, talk to you about here's the brain freeze study is talking about if most of us who have experience getting brain freeze. It is basically shown right here is you have right here is an ice cream, and a lot of times whenever we eat ice cream, it is if most of us here have experience about whenever we eat drink or something cold. It is if it's a slushy or if it's an ice cream, it is, or any other type of cold product. It is a lot of times you experience like what you call is like a real hard pain, of course, in the upper part, say of the brain. It is, and at the time begin to wonder. A lot of it has to do with maybe nerves. Apparently that if you're drinking something at a real cold temperature too fast, it would have it would if you had like what you call is like a if it's sensitive nerves or something like that, from whenever you drink something, if it's a milkshake, or if maybe if it's a glass of iced tea, that you may experience nerves, and of course inside the I guess it'll be inside the throat or inside the stomach. I'm thinking it may be more likely inside the throat. It is that if you were to have with most of us inside the throat, it is that you have nerves inside the throat that more likely that would cause, like we say, is like a where you would feel a little bit of the pain inside the brain. It is, and a lot of times it's like that from brain freeze, and I could maybe describe to anybody here about brain freeze. I'm like, what does brain freeze feel like? And knowing about some people that may say that I mean, it feels like somebody that had just open prompt to say and say what you cause like so you gotten cut your head open, and then of course at the day where cutting some tissues, you say from parts of the brain cells, it is, or something like that. And some people that may describe it as feels I used to always think about whenever I would get brain freeze from eating something or drinking something cold, was the fact about it felt just like if you were to have like what you call like a something that some tubing or something like that was stuck into you, that was pierced through your skull, and then it was what you call like collecting any blood samples. It seemed like it was collecting blood samples, and I don't know if I would be what you call it, maybe talking about mosquitoes or anything like that. But basically, that the whole part about brain freeze, if we can maybe study about what the cause of brain freeze is, and knowing about it, it's like with the most medical studies, it is basically talk about whenever that the nerves inside the brain, of course, has some irritation, of course, for the cold product that you could be drinking. And if any of us have studied about knowing about if you were to drink coffee or something like that, then knowing about if you get like what you call like hot flashes or anything like that, maybe if warm or hot flashes is caused by irritation, say, of the brain. It is, but knowing about that anything that you eat, that a lot of times it's like knowing about that I guess nerves inside the mouth, or if it's tissues to say inside the mouth, or if it's maybe the tongue. And at the time that warning that after you eat something, and of course after you swallow it, notice that there's like from the throat right here, it's like if you were to have it to where that if you had the throat right here, it is, and the muscles, of course, inside the nerves and muscles inside the throat, of course, you would change temperature, and then from that, and then it would have a result, and then I guess you say the optic nerve or something like that, the type of nerve that's in, of course, it's more likely that's in the throat. Of course, it causes irritation for the brain. And with most, we can maybe think about that with the brain, though, that if we were to think about if somebody were to pinch you, like pinch you in the arm or pinch you on a chink or something like that, give you a pinch or something like that, then a lot of times, I guess to say that there's cells that go from say for that transmit, of course, from the throat and into the brain, and from the brain back to the throat, to the stomach or something like that. And knowing about the sense, of course, is like knowing about whenever the thing I learned, of course, in the 8th grade, it was talking about how the nose works. Is basically that if most of us had done our studies before about how the nose work, about how you can smell and taste, it is basically that whenever it goes to the brain, it is that you can actually smell or taste for whatever you're eating, and of course whatever you're around, it is the smell of daisy flowers or anything like that. But on the other hand too, that knowing about with brain freeze, and I could probably tell anybody here like the types of food products that have maybe given me brain freeze before were like related to like what you call like you mentioned the Dairy Queen cakes. I know each time I eat those that sometimes I eat some that are pretty good, but then of course if you eat a lot, see people that would just chow down say the ice cream and stuff like that, and know about any cold product it is. And I could probably tell anybody here about cheesecake though. With cheesecake, that a lot of times I can eat cheesecake pretty fast, and and eat the other type of cake it is. But so far, with like maybe Dairy Queen, if it's a Dairy Queen cake, or if it's any other type of cake, frozen related product, or if it's a cold related product, that a lot of times, like a smoothie or a milkshake or something like that, or hot fudge sundae, it is that more likely there's a chance that I will get brain freeze. And whenever I get brain freeze, it is I can basically think about it's like oh man, I'm like I've between that you're talking about having a headache, you're talking about sinus pressure, and at the time, if most of us here experience, it's like whenever you do eat something cold, and a lot of times that you start to have an air, you start to you start getting runny noses and stuff like that, and your nose starts running, and then you may start get a headache, and then whenever you blow your nose, it feels like your brain is about to like explode. It is your head's about to explode, and I guess a lot of that is like what's called sinus pressure. It is, and a lot of us will probably think about with sinus pressure, it is that a lot of symptoms you experience more likely comes from like the study about it's like from the sinuses, and then of course with I guess the nasal congestion, it is from how much sinus pressure if you were sick with like some type of virus, it is that knowing about the type of pressure you'll be putting of course on the nose, and a lot of times that due to the study though that about a bloody nose, it is if most of us whenever we get a bloody nose, that sometimes even in the summertime we may experience getting a bloody nose, and half the time I thinking about maybe if somebody punched you in the nose, or the fact about that maybe you were picking your nose, it is reminds me of a story from back in the 5th grade. It is knowing about teaching people that teaching the kids, it's like you should not pick your nose, because if you stick your finger too far up, and then there's optic nerves in there that would chop off I think it was chop off your fingernail, whatever it is. But the thing about if you pick your nose, or if you pick your lip, whichever it is, whatever part of the say of your body, that more likely that maybe if you I know with me, I pick my ear a lot of time, quite a bit of times, and other people probably think about that they got habits to where that they want to go ahead and maybe pick their chin a little bit, but other than that, it's like pick their nose. And a lot of times it's like that, that knowing about that, the type of habits like that is basically talking about is like that on the other hand too, that knowing about it's like the type of habits that you have, of course, with your hands, and knowing about the I guess a lot of it has to do with the fact of nervousness. If you're studying, if you're doing your work, it is studying for a test or something like that. Maybe if it's an answer that you can't come up with, and then while you're sitting there kind of frustrated, trying to figure out what the answer is knowing about that you kind of want to put both of your hands, of course, on the side of your head, and feel like putting more pressure, say, on your mind. It's like I don't know the answer to this question. But on the other hand too, that with most doctors will probably say that knowing about that it all works about how the brain works. It is knowing about that if you don't know the answer to it, at least if like what you can do is maybe close your eyes, and of course just take a few seconds, of course, just to think about that certain moment it was of knowing about, for if you can remember about what the teacher talked about, and then knowing about maybe if you take a guess, anybody maybe think about if you take a guess, that more likely that it's like chance of you like knowing that you tried. And at the time that my teachers usually always say that, don't guess. It's like if you don't know the answer, then I guess it's like you just say that that you don't know or something like that. But that there was some teachers, of course. Now I really would not exactly know exactly what the teacher said, to be honest with anybody here. That a lot of times that my parents would be notified, from the teachers about exactly about knowing about how well that I was learning, of course, about if they give you a problem to work with, and basically that if they give you a problem to work with, it is knowing about if you ain't got the answer, it is some students that may write just in A. Not say not acropolis, like knowing about it's like, well, I don't know the answer to that yet or something like that. But on the other hand too, that knowing about that so far as is like if you were to guess the answer, of course to the answer it is basically talking about, it's like are you 50 to 100% sure that maybe that is the right answer? It is, but 50 to 100% sure, and that anybody probably thinking about getting on one of those trivia games, it is talking about the type of nerve cells, of course, that are in the brain that causes your mind. Of course, it's like so far as is pain. It's like talking about if we were to pop our knuckles, it is talking about popping our knuckles right here. Is basically if whenever it hurt, if you press too hard and if it hurts, what do you think that nerve is basically called? Whenever you make a fist, whenever you feel pain, of course, inside the fist, whenever you do this, it is, what do you think that nerve is called? That nerve is called, and basically I'm thinking that other than like maybe the optic nerve or something like that, that basically that you had nerve cells, and of course, say skin cells, of course, in there that are more likely to think about. It's like, for what exactly what they do. But other than that, right here, as you got right here is the hot fudge sundae with a cherry on the top. It is. But anyway, to talk about a study right here of brain freeze, is knowing about exactly anybody to say maybe a doctor would maybe recommend is that if you're going to be eating something that's going to be real cold, it is, and they say that don't put too much pressure, of course. If you're in a big hurry to eat it, and if anything, just wait until maybe it thaws out. Anybody probably think about with any dessert product that if you can, maybe wait until it thaws out a little bit, because on the other hand too, that knowing about if you were to drink something cold, such as maybe a slushy or a smoothie, a lot of times people say that if they're drinking ice water, it is that a lot of times that has involved with changing the temperature, of course, from the nerves, and then it goes up to the brain, and may cause like what you call like a pinch in the brain, and irritation to the brain, that only lasts for maybe a few seconds. It is, but at the time I can describe to anybody here about brain freeze. It is that what about exactly about brain freeze, about how it feels. I kept thinking to myself that if most of us have experienced having a migraine headache before, it kind of feels like that. And other people probably think about it. If it feels like a jackhammer is being drilled into your skull. So some people probably say it feels like something's being drilled into your skull or something like that, into your skull, and causing nerve problems. Like talking about it's like talking about the amount of pain, of course, that you experience if you were to get brain freeze. It is, and there may be some people that may think about, hey, it feels like a lot of pressure being pounded onto your mind. That only lasts for maybe a few seconds. It is, but other than that, the talking about right here is the brain freeze study. Is talking about exactly about is a study about what does it mean, and of course about the whole symptoms, of course, and knowing about the fact about is like talking about that you say ways to prevent brain freeze. More likely is just by taking one. It's like just by gently eating slow. It is, and just taking small bites. It is, but other than that, is talking about right here is talking about it's like for the study. So the brain freeze. The brain freeze study coloring activity.